Hello, I'm Dynast Amir.
So I reached out to another friend of mine. I said, look, I need to go on vacation somewhere. Where should I go? He said, go to Africa. And not only am I going to go, I'm going to explore a new country. So I went to Tanzania, South Africa, Namibia, Mali, Senegal, Morocco, Liberia, Namibia, Kenya, the Voodoo Festival in Ouida, Gambia, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire. Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria. It's been a beautiful experience, just learning more about our culture, our indigenous culture. So Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. I'm in search of my roots. In finding that, I would experience my Uhuru, which is freedom.
Till next time, Dynast Amir. I'm out.
Peace, family. I hope all is well. I hope today's Tuesday, right? Tuesday. Hope your Tuesday is going well. Guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button again. Please hit the like button. Also, make sure you share and you subscribe. All that good stuff. Make sure you do all of that. Listen, if you are watching this and if you have not bought the documentary yet, In Search of Uhuru, I need you, excuse me, sorry. I need you to go to searchforuhuru.com. Again, I need you to go to searchforuhuru.com and buy the documentary. Again, if you have not bought the documentary yet, I need you to go to searchforuhuru.com and buy the documentary. So far, the reviews have been coming in and people like the documentary. So again, please go to searchforuhuru.com and buy. Let me do this view right here. There we go, man. And buy the documentary. You're gonna go there, click on purchase the documentary. Oh, it brought up a whole new screen. We didn't want that. Hold on one second. And there we go. That's what we wanted. Right. So you're gonna go searchforuhuru.com, click on the notification at the top, and it'll bring you, or the link, and it'll bring you right here to the documentary. The documentary is streamed for the rest of your life. Again, it's streamed you can stream it for the rest of your life. So do you have a reviews page where people can add reviews? Oh, you know what, Miss Simpson, thank you. Let me write that note down. Add review page. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'll make sure that gets added to the site. I'll talk to my web guy. We'll get that done. But you just click on stream, pay for it. You can stream it on any device, set up your login, phone, tablet, smart TV, and you can watch it on any device. So again, go to searchforuhuru.com and buy the documentary. I would greatly appreciate it. Really means a lot. And just overall, guys, I want to thank all of you guys for the support. Alan, I really enjoyed the documentary. It was a great summation. Oh, I froze. Guys, am I here? I have froze for a second. I'm sorry, I have froze. Am I here? Okay, it's like it's lagging. Something's going on. It's lagging. Um, but also make sure you go to donfo.africa. Donfo.africa and check out the tours where we're traveling to. We are going to Senegal again. We are going to Senegal in May 21st to the 30th, May 21st to the 30th. Again, we're going to Senegal May 21st to the 30th. Oh, Donfo.Africa, not dot Africa. It's Donfo.Africa. I apologize about that. Again, go to Donfo.Africa so you can see everything that we are doing. And like I said, we're rolling to Senegal in May. We're rolling to Senegal in May for the jazz festival. For the jazz festival, jazz festival in Senegal, one of the largest jazz festivals in the world, in St. Louis. And we're gonna have a great time. Again, we're gonna have a great time. So if you would like to join us in Senegal for the jazz festival, please visit donfo.africa to learn more. Again, please visit donfo.africa to learn more. All right, without further ado, we have a special guest on with us today. And the topic I've been thinking about lately is Black people. We are the only people as a group where the majority of us, the vast majority of us, vote one way, and other groups don't, right? It's like 50-50 or like 48-52, but with other groups, whether it be Hispanic, Asian, it's kind of down the line. And I'm always asking myself why. And instead of just trying to figure it out, I'm like, how about I bring on a Latino American, Mexican American on to the show and he can explain it himself because I'm not Latino. All right. And listen, I'm going to bring up AOC as well because, Black folks, Black folks thought AOC was, the revolutionary who was going to, set the legacy Democrats. She was going to set them right and go and start a shakeup and start a revolution in the Democratic Party and take over and have a coup in the Democratic Party. But she's fell right in line. What was it? The four, or the five, whatever her group was, with her and Omar and okay. So King Joseph, listen, guys, when you text me and say, "Hey, Dinas, I'm planning on coming." Look, so I have the early bird special for the St. Louis tour. I mean, the Senegalese tour. I have an early bird special. Down payment instead of 500, it's 250. Okay, instead of 500, it's two. The squad. You're right. The squad. Yeah, what happened to the squad? I thought the squad was supposed to rise up, but the squad hasn't been doing anything lately. So down payment for the tour early bird special is 250 for Senegal. If you want to roll, let me know. But yeah, so I'm like, let me bring on Mexican Condor again, and we can have a productive conversation. So let me bring Mexican Condor on. Mexican Condor, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Yeah, how about yourself?
I'm doing well, doing well, doing well. Yeah, we'll jump right into it. So topic of the day, and I know we'll kind of shift a little bit. Um, why Latinos are leaving the Democratic Party for the Republican Party. And many on the left will say that, well, hold on. Well, the Democratic Party, their lax immigration laws allow a lot of not just people coming from south of the border, but pretty much all over, allow individuals to immigrate into this country more easier. So why would Latinos turn their back on a Democratic Party and start voting Republican? I had got into a kind of a debate with a friend of mine who's from, they're Democrat, but some are from Africa and they're immigrants here in America. And then I have some Black American friends, and they're like, "Well, Dinas, you're Africa, you travel to Africa, you hold citizenship in Africa. Why would you vote for a party that it makes it harder for Black people to immigrate into this country. You know, and I had to respond to him like, I don't agree with the direction the Democrat Party is going in. But Mexican Connor, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then that'll be the first question. Like, why are Latinos leaving the Democratic Party for the Republican Party when the Democratic Party has easier immigration laws and lax immigration laws, which makes it easier for Hispanics to come into the country?
Okay, well, let's start. I'm going to pull a little bit of a Kanye here. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, not too far, but
take it. Listen, the floor is yours. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm already anticipating that some of your listeners are going to gripe about Latino talking on a African American platform, and I just want to educate your listeners a little bit about our shared genealogical and cultural history, just to set a ground floor. So Latinos are connected to the African continent through two ways. First of all, Spain was conquered by the Moors, the people of North Africa, for about 700 years. So that's where we get the word for dark-skinned people. We call them morenos. That's where it comes from. So we're connected to North Africa genealogically and historically, and also through the African diaspora throughout the Americas. Like, for example, my 23andMe profile tells me that I'm 1.8% West African. So throughout Latin America.
Okay, say that again. How much? You said 28%?
1.8%.
1.8. Oh, I mean, come on. Okay. If you want to count that, that's okay. Okay. 1.
Well, it's there. That signature is there.
Let's see, Mexican Continent, just to push back a little bit. I know white people, whitest know, who have like 1 or 2% as well. So, I mean.
Well, yeah, that's true. But I just want to illustrate that Latin Americans do have an African signature, and it manifests itself differently in Latin America than it does in the United States. In Latin America, most of that genealogical history was absorbed into the general population, such as in my family. There weren't, at least in Mexico, I can speak of. They didn't form unique communities that didn't mix with the people around them. Everybody kind of went to the same soup. But I'm just letting everyone know that is part of our history too. And for example, the second president of the Independent Republic of Mexico was a man by the name of Vicente Guerrero.
Was a black man.
Exactly. And nobody knows his story. And he would make an awesome subject for a movie. I mean, he's I would analogize him to being the Latino African Braveheart. That's really kind of how his story would unfold if he made it into a movie. So that being said, let's get back to the topic again where we started, is why are Latinos voting Republican? Well, let's first of all, we got to establish why Latinos identified with the Democratic Party in the first place. Because the Democratic Party historically was the party of labor. And as culture and society evolves, the party platforms drift, and now it's drifted away from the interests of working class people and the poor, and into the interests of coastal elites. So they no longer are all that interested in representing our core interests. Now, let me give you an example of how that how it manifests itself in a negative way for working class people. So they have no problem shutting down a factory in the United States because it spews emissions. And the end result is when that factory moves to China and is coal powered and produces 10 times more carbon than it did in the United States, it actually makes the problem worse. But they're willing to indulge this counterproductive measure and throw working class people out of work because it's an ego-driven agenda. So yeah, no, their interests now are contrary to those of the working class people of any race or ethnicity. I mean, it hurts working class Latinos. It hurts working class African Americans. It hurts working class white people. It hurts everybody that isn't in the office and clicking away at a keyboard. So that's one reason why Latinos are drifting away from the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is drifting away from them. Now, in recent times, we were all aware of the Roe versus Wade decision, which is not really what people think it is. It doesn't end abortion. It just mandates that individual states set their own policies. So,
Scott, what's interesting about that? Because, Stacey Abrams, black woman, she's pushing abortion. The lady, the main figure in that case, she originally tried to say a black man raped her. Like she was in Texas and she went to a police station and, she wanted to have an abortion. And her friends told her to tell the police that a black man raped her. And that's the story she tried to push. The police didn't believe her, but it's crazy. She literally lied and tried to say, I know this is off topic, and tried to say that a black man raped her. Because, back then you could get away with that story. But go ahead.
Okay, well, we can instead of calling it Roe versus Wade, maybe we should call it Roe versus Karen, because that sounds like the original Karen right there. Well, yeah, no. As far as it concerns abortion, I don't want to relitigate the pros and cons of it, because we'll be here reinventing the wheel and reinventing the can opener and reinventing, everything, that exists. So I just want to focus on where Latinos stand on abortion and how the Democratic Party is, how that correlates with the Democratic Party. So, by and large, most Latinos are predominantly Catholic. So I think we all individually kind of acknowledge that abortion is kind of maybe a necessary evil, but it's not something that we want to make a front and center issue. I think morally, you can be morally opposed to it, and also maybe recognize that there's wiggle room for something that is necessary sometimes, or that maybe some people should make up their own mind about on the issue. But so anyhow, putting that aside, the Democratic Party is going full bore with trying to resonate with Latino voters on abortion. They're making it an issue that they want to campaign on with us. And historically, they haven't touched it because they know we're lukewarm on the matter at best. And now they're trying to pigeonhole us into their position. So they're trying to corral us into their ideological plantation. And I think it's a big mistake, because it does not resonate with us the same way it does with, let's say the Karens on the coast, who are more concerned with a career and standard of living over taking responsibility for the decisions you make in life and the consequences thereof. So that's that. So they're drifting away from us on that. And the one issue that gets under my skin the most, and it really annoys me every time I see it, because I see it creeping up everywhere and it's unwanted, is this term Latinx. As far as I'm concerned, they should take the X and put it at the beginning of the word, because it's being imposed on us. We didn't ask for it, and it demonstrates a total lack of respect for our language and our history. Spanish, in reality, is a dialect of Latin. That's why they call us Latinos. It's a language with over 3,000 years of history. It's the language of the Roman Empire, and it's the language that we inherited, and with all that history behind it. So it is just beyond the pale for them to assume that they can change that for us without asking us, and without consulting for us, and dictating the terms of our own goddamn language. So that's that's for me. That's the most personal issue as far as that regards where the left is going, and why they're alienating Latinos, and why we're turning towards the Republicans. Although, so those are the reasons why we're turning against the Democrats. However, looking at the other side of the fence, the Republicans have done a terrible job of trying to reach out to us. And
Basically, if I can interject, I'm noticing in Texas they're doing a much better job from what it seems, because a lot of the elected officials in parts of Texas are Latina, are Republican, and they're and they brought up, and that was one of my questions, the whole abortion issue, how Latinos feel about it, because I was watching an interview the other day, a Latino woman, I forgot, I don't know if she's a senator or what she was, somewhere in Texas. And that's what she brought up. Like, Democrats keep pushing this stuff in the Latino community. We don't get rolled like that.
well, I think the Republicans are doing a better job of marketing in Texas because Myra Flores, she looks like us, she talks like us, she has the same life story as us. Her father looks like someone we could know. He looks like someone we relate to. And she's sharing the same concerns that we have. She's primarily concerned about A, the economy, having jobs, and B, security. And the border communities are being overrun with the chaos that's happening at the border, because it is chaos. So that resonates with Latino people that live in proximity to the border, because they see it firsthand, and that they don't want people running through their property, and who knows who is coming over, and what they're bringing with them, and what kind of you don't know what's coming across. And there is definitely evil that takes advantage of that, of the pores in the border. There's no doubt about that. We know it, we see it, and we're afraid to go back and visit our own families because it's been allowed to grow out of control. So yeah, it's a legitimate security concern that affects all of us. And the Democrats don't recognize it that way. They don't live there. They don't see it. They don't want to see it. Every time I invite my liberal friends to let's go down to the border, let's go explore the border community so you can see for it yourself, they go balk, 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 and chicken out. So it's a willful ignorance on their part. So how do you communicate your issues and concerns to people who don't want to realize them, don't want to see them? So what choice do you have? But okay, look, what's the alternative? Well, let's give the other side a chance. So there's a lot to unpack there. Those are just a few of the issues that are resonating with us.
Guys, do me a favor. If you're in the chat room, hit the like button. If you have not hit the like button, do me a favor, hit the like button, and make sure you buy the documentary as well. But please hit the like button. If you're in the chat room, again, please hit the like button. All right, so I was going to bring up Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, Ocasio-Cortez. I noticed a lot of Hispanic Latinos are starting to, I don't want to say heckle her, because all they're doing is calling her out about her not being forthcoming. I mean, they're telling the truth when they so-called heckle her. Overall, how do you feel about AOC? I know she's Puerto Rican, correct?
She is Puerto Rican, and there is a difference between Puerto Rican and Mexican. Even
right. Exactly. Yes, correct. Yes, I know. But still, like, overall, like, how does the Latino? Because I know between Cubans, Mexicans, El Salvadorian, Guatemalans, there's clearly a difference. But
well, yeah,
overall,
but she's
how does the Latino community feel about
well.
her?
The way we feel about her is that she's been designated as our spokesperson without our consultation. She's one woman that from a specific ethnic group, and she's supposed to speak for all of us and represent all of our issues. And well, we're talking about the issues of people spread across the entire Western Hemisphere. So I don't see her as a legitimate spokesperson, because she can't be. No one person, no one individual can speak for all of us. But again, we're pigeonholed by the media. We're more or less held voiceless. And she's been anointed to speak for us. So that's why there's a lot of resentment there. At least, as far the way I see it, as a Mexican American. And again, she doesn't. She represents far left issues and concerns. She doesn't represent the interests of working class people. She, shut down the expansion of I believe, an Amazon processing center. So, there were all those jobs that would have gone to the working class people of those communities,
Right. With somewhere else.
didn't materialize. And so, of course, she puts the LGBT agenda front and center. So they've become not just another group with the seat at the table. They've become a group that's been super empowered over everyone else. That's, or at least that's the impression that I have, and I think I'm probably not the only one that feels that way. So, I don't know. How do African Americans feel about her?
Listen, if she has a Democrat, if she has a D at the back of her name, they love her no matter what. They'll make excuses for her. As long as she has a D at the back of her name, no harm, no foul. She's all good. No matter what, they're going to defend her, no matter what. In fact, the Black American community defends AOC more than the Latino community.
Well, I'd like to know how Dominicans feel about her, because obviously the Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic are two different groups with different interests. And they probably feel the same way as I do, that, she's been anointed to speak for them without their consent.
All right. So have you been keeping up what's going on in the with the LA City Council with the two of the council members have resigned already, but two more still have not. Like, have you been keeping up with that?
So last I heard, if I'm aware, I believe the councilman with the longer term left in his that he has currently left. I think he has 2 years left before the next election. He's refusing to step down because, primarily, let's be honest, where else is he going to go to earn $200,000+ a year? So, he's probably broke. He can't afford to leave, and he's going to hang on as long as he can until they find a legal remedy to remove him, or until his term is over. That's how I see it. The other gentleman who's still on the council, his term is ending, I believe in December. So he's just gonna run the clock and keep collecting a paycheck until then. All of which demonstrates that they are really only in it for themselves. Ultimately, both of these gentlemen, the ones that are remaining on the city council, they were turned out of the state legislature, so they went backwards down the ladder to find a position in a city council. So they're going backwards just to look for a sweet landing spot. So that tells you what they're in it for. They're just in it as a career, and don't really have any principles beyond their own interests after that. So I don't know how accommodating the media is going to be for them. Eventually the story is going to fade out of relevance. So I would suggest that African Americans in Southern California keep up the pressure. Don't let it go away, because eventually they will let it go away.
I don't think they've been putting up that much pressure. I think it's more Latinos and white liberals who've been putting up the pressure. Like when I see the protests, it's primarily other Latinos or white people who are putting up the pressure.
Well, for now, because it gives them something, someone to point the finger at. But they'll get tired, and it'll fade, and they'll probably serve out their terms. At least Gil Cedillo will, because it only has to hold out until December. But Kevin, he's going to be there for a couple of years, or as long as he can, until they find a legal remedy to remove him.
Well, from my understanding, he could, I guess they could hold a recall or something, or.
I don't know how it works in the city council of Los Angeles, but I imagine there's got to be some remedy. But you also have to keep in mind, he's been a fixture in the Democratic Party and state politics for a very long time. So he's as connected a Democrat as you can find. So they're just very lucky that in California they have such a strong lock on the state that they can just replace him with another Democrat. They don't have to worry about losing seats to another party because it's just not going to happen. It's just that lopsided here in California.
Guys, hit the like button again. Please hit the like button. Again, hit the like button. Link is in the chat room. If you want to call in and add to the conversation, again, link is in the chat room. Again, if you want to call in and add to the conversation, link is in the chat room. So call on in if you got a question or statement. You know, the come in and share it with us. Again, share it with us. Oh, so the election, Karen Bass and I forgot the what's the other guy's name?
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. The Republican running as a Democrat. Yes. I can't recall the gentleman's name, but yes, I know who you're talking about. And see how misleading, how much stock people put in the label without taking into consideration what's behind it. So he's if he ran with the R on his name, same person, same principles, same positions, everything is exactly the same about him. I mean, he would be guaranteed to lose. But he just switched the label. Now he's a legitimate contender. So that just tells me that tribalism has run amok in our politics. So I don't know how you remedy that. Maybe Republicans should start putting D's on their names and run as wolves in sheep's clothing. That would be the only advice I could give Republicans in California because it's such a tarnished brand here.
So shout out to Philip Lindsay. Which Mexican political party do you align with? PRD or PRI?
Okay, well, your listeners aren't going to know what any of those terms mean. So I'll give you a little bit of a background. So right now there are three main parties in Mexico. There is the PRI party, which it's an acronym which translates into English as the Institutional Revolutionary Party. So how can a party be institutional and revolutionary at the same time? So it was the dominant party for 70 years.
Right. Exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you can see that so the hypocrisy is inscribed in the title of the party itself. So that was the dominant party for 70 years, and they ruled through by hook and by crook for 70 years. Now, then there's the PAN party, Partido Acción Nacional, the National Action Party, which would be analogous to the Republican Party in the United States. And they were able to win the presidency from 2000 to 2012, 2 6-year terms under two different presidents. Then 2012, the Empire Strikes Back. The PRI party regained the presidency, and that's just the beginning of a long downward slide. So now we have a third party called the Morena party, which would be equivalent to the left wing of the Democratic Party. So they won the presidency in the last election in 2018, and their president, who goes by the acronym of AMLO, which stands for Andrés Manuel López Obrador. So AMLO is much easier to say than his full name. He would be analogous to Bernie Sanders in every way, shape, and form. So if you want to know what the United States would look like with President Bernie, look to where Mexico is now. One of his campaign slogans was "Abrazos no balazos," which translates into "hugs, not bullets." That was more or less described his approach to the cartels. And obviously, you can see what the result is. The violence is worse than ever, and the whole thing is threatening to unravel at any day. So basically, Mexico was what United States might have been with President Bernie. So that's how it breaks down. I would have to say I'd have to align myself with the PAN if I have to align myself with any specific party, because they are the most commerce and business friendly of the parties, which is something that Mexico desperately needs to realize their vast potential. So that's where I would stand if I had voting rights in Mexico. So I hope I answered your question.
Okay. Guys, hit the like button. Listen, links in the chat room. This is a call-in show, not read the questions in the chat show. So again, call in, click on the link, and you're more than welcome to call in. Again, click on the link, and you're more than welcome to call in. Like as far Mexicano, just to confirm, you're in California, correct?
Or that is Texas? Correct. I'm in Palm Springs,
okay.
Actually.
In Palm Springs, okay. The future of California, like what do you see like the next 10, 15 years? Is it sustainable? I mean, homelessness is out of control. I mean, it's crazy. Like, what do you see as far as for the future of California?
For California, I see a long, slow decline. The era of growth is over. It's impossible to build anything here. You can't walk and chew gum without a permit. So no real growth is going to happen here. There's not going to be any more Tesla mega factories. We're not going to build lithium batteries here. Even in things that we led the way, like wind power, for example, we're like the number 5 wind states. Because, of course, you can't build anything here. The wind power we have is all the wind power we're ever going to have. So I predict California will lose population, probably lose a few million people. We'll lose representation in Congress. And Texas is going to pick up the slack because Texas is hoovering up everything because it's just in their DNA. Growth is just in their DNA. They're okay with letting Elon Musk launch rockets out in their deserts. They're okay with that. They look forward to it. It doesn't bother them. I mean, you couldn't do that here in the high deserts anymore, even though it was the cornerstone of the aerospace industry once upon a time. And there's nobody out there and nothing but open space. We'll find a reason to make it not happen. That's what California is. The state of let's not make it happen. That's how I see California, and it's sad, and it's just really going to be it's just a rest home for boomers lucky enough to own some property on the coast. That's what it is now, and that's all it ever will be. So that's how I see the future of California. I mean, what did you take away from California during the time that you were here?
That it was declining. That's why I got the hell out of there.
So yeah,
it was overpriced, especially like LA, where I was living in LA. I'm from Sacramento. I was living in LA. It was overpriced, dirty as hell, and I just no longer saw the value in it. So I just, when my son was born, I just came out here to Georgia.
Well, yeah, but you know what? A lot of people who live here and live in places like Corona and I don't know. Lancaster, they still have in their mind this notion of, oh, they're so lucky to live in California. It's like, you never see the beach, you've never been skiing, you're just hanging on to this idea of what it is in the minds of people elsewhere. But if you don't live that reality, if you're not lucky enough to live literally on the coast, it's no better than anywhere else. There's no point in being here if you can find a viable option elsewhere.
But I see, I see a lot of people still, well, not a lot. There's more people leaving than coming, but the people who are coming, they're still trying to chase like that Hollywood dream, like entertainment. I think that's the only thing that's saving LA is the entertainment.
Well, I mean, it's not as big a part of the economy as people think it is. It's just the most visible part. I mean, you can't sustain 30 million people on entertainment alone. But it is but it is our calling card, and and for some people who manage to leverage a career in that world, I mean, if you play your cards right, the rewards are tremendous. But that's not going to be most people. That's the rare exception, and people are still going to come out here with their dreams, and they're going to leave when their dreams become nightmares.
Right, exactly. Guys, links in the chat room. Link is in the chat room. If you'd like to call in and add to the conversation, you are more than welcome to call in and add to the conversation. Again, link is in the chat room. Do you think California will ever turn red?
I don't think California is ever going to turn red because people who are conservative leaning have been leaving for 20 years. So I don't see us getting that balance back. So it's going to be more of the same. It's it would take a massive falling off a massive financial cliff for California to start reconsidering other options. And I mean that could happen.
All right, Freeman's Journal, go ahead.
Hey, thanks for having me up, Dennis. Appreciate it. I was going to say, I was going to ask Mexican Condor, what does he think the trend towards the Republican Party for Latinos like portrays nationally?
Well, nationally, I think it varies by populations and groups and nationalities. Cubans are going to be more conservative. They're going to be more red than they were before, because they come from the legacy of socialism in Cuba, and they don't want none, and they see it creeping in, and they're going to oppose it, and so Latin Mexicans are not as conservative as Cubans, not as red, but they're starting to wake up and they're starting to lean that way. I can't really speak to what Dominicans think or what other groups think. That I'm not around them enough to really know how they feel. But I imagine that it's probably not too different from where Mexicans stand. They're probably mostly blue, but they're turning purple.
Right. Yeah, I think so too. And speaking on California, yeah, California's done because they're losing too many people. And what you were saying about them flipping versus a financial catastrophe. It's just how are they going to pay the pensions without the people? If they lose 5% of their population, it's over. So, just my opinion. I'm from San Diego, so I've born and raised. So, and I lived out there, moved away and moved back. So, that's what I'm seeing. I had the other question about what do you think about cartel infrastructure growing within the U.S.?
Well, it has to be there, right? It has to exist in order for them to be able to distribute their goods at the scale that they're doing it. So I'm wondering why we're doing such a terrible job of containing it. I mean, how do you let 100,000 people overdose? And there's no meaningful curtailment. Why isn't it an issue of national concern? I mean, Hiroshima only killed 77,000, and we're letting 100,000 people OD every year. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And we know where it's coming from. It's starting with China through Mexico via the cartels. So it's a collusion of evil that's pouring into our through our borders. And who is Joe Biden talking about it? He ain't going to talk about it until his idiot son Hunter, until they find him dead in the hotel room. Then it'll become issue number one. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think so. I already see you already see the pro cartel graffiti, right? And they're already well ensconced in the California prison population. So, that's one thing that, as far as for the audience, like black people don't understand that the cartels are in all cities.
Oh yeah, they have to have a presence everywhere.
I mean, it's Chicago, Atlanta, everywhere. If there's drug distribution, the cartels have a shop there. And so all these cities that are lowering standards for police and everything else, your neighborhoods are going to be patrolled by cartel members sooner or later.
Well, if the next step for the cartels, I believe, is they're going to start to infiltrate our political system when they can, because that's what they do in Mexico. They've corrupted everything, including the army. So once the army works for the cartels, you don't have a republic anymore. And again, President Bernie / AMLO is not containing it. He's accelerating that process. So I don't know that we're that far removed from him here in the States. I think I could totally see the possibility of them starting to corrupt our systems. I wouldn't put it past them to try to curry influence in California with our legislators. I mean, legislators, rather. That's what I would do. And
Yeah, exactly. And they'll start at the local level. That's what I'm saying. The cities are the obvious next target.
yeah, and they are completely agnostic as far as who they'll work with. They'll work with the Chinese. They'll work with the Europeans. They don't care. They reach out. Their tentacles go everywhere. So it's my understanding that at least in the California prisons, the people who really run it are the paisas and the ABs. Paisas being Spanish for paisano, Mexican nationals, and the Aryan Brotherhood. They're totally agnostic. So that's what we're facing. And
that's what I've heard too.
So yeah, so yeah, if you want, so this whole notion of the Black and Brown Coalition, well, it's not really that way. The in the prisons you have the Paisa and the white supremacist coalition, because it's all about the money. So what would it? Let me ask you, Dynast and Friedman, what would it take for the Republican Party to peel away African American voters in a meaningful way? What can the Republican Party do to start to turn the tables?
It's starting to happen slowly, but like you said, I don't think. I don't think the outreach is at the. I don't think the ground game is as strong from the Republican Party when it comes to Black people because of the pushback they'll get. See, I don't know how it is in the Mexican community when or Latino community when the Republicans come around, but literally, if you're a Black man and Black people find out you vote Republican, it's like you're enemy number one now. Like you're a white supremacist. You support white nationalism. So I don't know if that's the same in the Mexican community. So like if a Black Republican or Republican comes around here, immediately you're a white nationalist, you're a racist, get the hell out of here. Black Republican, you're a sellout, you're a coon. So I mean, is it similar in the Mexican community?
I think there was shades of that in the past. Definitely, there was. There was a clear majority of favor for the Democrats over the Republicans in the with Mexican Americans. I would say it was probably like 80-20 or 70-30, and that's starting to shift. But we are naturally conservative. I mean, and so
well, see, Black people, the Black community is naturally conservative. Black immigrants are naturally conservative, but they still vote Democrat.
But you know what the big difference is, Dinus? Families.
What is it?
Families. That naturally conservative thing doesn't mean anything if you don't have a family. So the Latino community has a lot more families, so they're a lot more sensitive to those issues. So you can say, hey, on paper, sure, like the older Black people that vote, sure, they're more conservative, okay. But without the families to undergird that in future generations, they'll vote however.
Well, also, I think another factor as far as it concerns Latinos is we used to identify as the poor. We are poor by definition. But as we, climb the ladder and open our own businesses and, become entrepreneurs, we start to we start to drift away from that kind of thinking, and then we start to be concerned about business matters, taxes, regulations, all that kind of stuff. Because then when you see it and feel it um, in a way that you don't when you're just collecting a paycheck, you start to second guess it, and you start to identify with the other side that's going to have a meaningful impact on your bottom line.
Hey, Freeman, can you be more specific when you say families? Like, I know what you mean by family. You mean a marriage unit, but black people in the chat room they don't get it because they're saying, "Well, we got
Oh,
families too." You
they
mean
get
like
it,
more
man.
marriage unit, right?
They get it. I'm talking about nuclear families and saying black people have families as well. Of course they do. Do they have it to the same degree that Latinos have families? No. Right. The marriage rate is just far higher.
Right,
Right.
right.
So
The nuclear
the
family.
nuclear families are going to be far higher. I mean, come on. Black people,
Well,
of course, black people have families, right? I didn't say that isn't a single black family in America. This is weird knee jerk reaction.
well, I
Right.
think
I understood what you meant, but people in the chat room they just started,
well, I
the nuclear
think
family. Right?
well, I think what it comes down to is the nuclear family is still a cohesive part of our culture and community. Um, whereas it's whereas there's a lot of dysfunction in the African American community, and white people probably have broken families at a higher rate than Latinos. Um, so probably the most cohesive group, group that has the most cohesive families, is probably Asians, but I don't think Latinos are far behind them. And blacks and whites are kind of drifting in the same direction, away from the family, and the way I see it.
Yeah, again, guys, the marriage rate in the black community is much, much, much lower than in the Hispanic community. So, Freeman, I completely understood what you were saying. And Mexican Condor in the Hispanic community. Have you ever heard a man saying, that his wife made him sleep on the couch? Does that happen in your community?
No, not really. It's there's a lot of
It's,
machismo in
it's,
our
it's,
culture.
it's patriarchal, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. It's still
Okay,
very,
so
very
have
big.
you ever heard, happy wife, happy life, or my wife told me I had to vote a certain way. Does that happen in the Hispanic community?
No, we're still very much a culture where the man wears the pants, and
Right. So
no.
in the black community, it's the opposite. It's the other way around. Women. Some of the I've heard some of the weirdest stuff from black men who are married. I'm like, dude, do you have nuts? Like, what do you have nut? Like, did your wife castrate you? Like, I hear some of the weirdest stuff from black married men. I'm like, I know other groups of men don't don't tolerate this stuff.
Well,
You know.
I don't want to judge, other people's domestic lives and how they settle matters between themselves. But I don't think it's exclusive to the black community. I think you hear white people say that kind of thing too. So I think that probably speaks to the feminization of our culture in general. I think we're drifting that way, and definitely the media wants to push us in that direction. Um, not saying it's all. I'm not saying that machismo can't be toxic, because we all know it can be, but there has to be. There's a delicate balance, and it's hard to find that sweet spot.
Go ahead, Alan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to call in and answer that question about what the Republicans have to do to peel off black folks. I think George W. Bush showed you how it's possible. He was able to get a lot of black people to vote just by giving us next to nothing and doing the faith-based initiative. If you have more stuff like that involving the churches, and if Republicans would just humble themselves to admit that there is systemic racism, I'm willing to bet you they could peel off a significant number of black people because that is the one thing that Democrats use against Republicans.
Alan, hear me out, bro. Hear me out. Donald Trump came in office, said black people built this country. If it wasn't for it would be no America without black people. Donald Trump also offered us $500 billion. I don't know, Alan. I just what else more do black people want?
Like I said, I think though doing those two things would you'd see a significant jump, because what I'm noticing is that regardless of race, regardless of nationality, people are really tired of the Democrats' social agenda and the LGBTQ stuff. And so, with all the pronouns and all this other stuff that's going on. And so people are literally willing to vote for anybody to show that they oppose that. And I don't think black people are any different. I think that most black people have a conservative background naturally, based on church experience, and that if the Republicans catered more to that, they could peel off a significant number of votes from black people. I have no doubt about it.
Can I interject here and just add a little bit about Donald Trump as far as that relates to African Americans versus Latinos? The way I see it, Donald Trump did absolutely everything in the world for the African American community. He did more than any president I've ever heard in my lifetime.
But Mr. Khan, you cannot tell these black folks that. You cannot, even when black people refuse. When our so-called black leadership, they refused to go meet with Trump. Every black organization or person that went to Trump got what they wanted. Like, there was no executive order, none of this other stuff. He did that, but whatever they needed, it was no discussion, they got.
I think probably if you want to be Machiavellian about it, I think the biggest mistake Donald Trump did is he should have focused his efforts on Latinos. If he had poured the same love onto Latinos that he did for the black community, there's no question this would be the second year of his second term.
You could be right. You very well could be right. One other thing I wanted to chip in is that, Southern California, everybody seems to ignore the one obvious problem that California has, and that it has no water. Maybe people need to move out of California. Maybe that's something that needs to happen. I know people have issues with the economics of it and pensioners and stuff like that, but if there's no water, Southern California at least, ceases to be livable. If you see the water levels of Lake Mead, it's atrocious. I was showing a class that I teach, the water levels in Lake Mead and how they're just finding bodies and boats and all kinds of things. It's not a pretty sight. So maybe, just maybe, the best thing for people to do is to move out of California.
Well, some of those water
issues. Not enough
are
people to move out. Oh, pardon me. Go ahead.
Well, some of those issues in California are self-inflicted. For example, 70% of the water we dump into the ocean. We don't retain it. We could build more dam capacity to, alleviate our problems. That's one issue. The second issue was we put the lumber industry out of business. All those pine trees suck hundreds of gallons of water out of the ground every day. So, and we let them basically fallow. They overgrow, then they burn up into giant fires, when we could mitigate all that with forestry. So that's another mistake that we make here. And we have technological options that we didn't have before. We can desalinate water, and at the very least, we could have guaranteed water security, so that we protect ourselves against a humanitarian disaster. And of course, again, that involves building something and building it on the coast, which, of course, that's not going to happen in California, because you can't build anything here.
You can't. You cannot. And just what you're saying, Alan, about California, dude, they can't get rid of enough people to make there be enough water, and they're used to it by now, because they used to water the freeways, right? Ice plant along the sides of the freeways. They used to water that when I was a kid. Now it's just dirt and brown. So yeah, and not enough people don't leave.
I lived in California. I just really, just demographics wise, just.
You there, Alan? Alan. I don't know what happened. Mr. Sandman, go ahead, Mr. Sandman.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that
Hey, you're real low. Can you speak up? Are you on Bluetooth or what's going on?
oh, okay, 1 second please. Can you hear me now?
I guess it's better. Go ahead. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think sometimes we overblow the power of the president of the United States. I believe the president of the United States is mainly the commander in chief of the military, and that the legislative power leans more towards the House and the Congress. So I think that when we're talking about, our rights as far as citizens, or whether it be, the black or the brown people, we have to look to more towards our Senate, who we're voting for, or in the Senate, who we're voting for in the Congress, and also who we're voting for locally for our mayors and our presidents and our council members as well. So, yeah, so when we put too much respect or too much blame on the president, I think that's misguided. I think Trump did some things. I think, but his power is kind of overblown. Also, the Fowleys, or we can't put too much blame on what Obama did as well, because, again, his main priority is commander in chief of the military. So, um, also, yeah, when Obama took office, we were in the middle of the war in the Middle East, right? So when the war in the Middle East came along, that was his number one priority, and then that's when he lost the Democrats lost the House, and he no longer had full power in his second term. So it wasn't as much that he could do as far as influencing the legislation that was going on the federal level. But I believe Trump had both the House and the Senate, or the Republicans had the House and the Senate while Trump was in office for his term as well, or at least half of his term. And he got some things passed, but for the most part, he can only influence, or maybe even suggest some policy, but he doesn't have full control of that.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it. Mexican Condor, what was I going to say? Oh, we talked about this briefly. So, Democratic Party, of course, Black people, Black and Brown Coalition. So I'm like, okay. So on the Black Caucus site, it talks about pretty much this minority coalition and how the Black Caucus is working for the minority coalition. On the Hispanic Latino Caucus site, it's pretty much we are here to improve the betterment, to better and improve the lives of Latino peoples. Then Biden told so-called Black leadership that listen, Latinos are pretty much Latinos are going to be the largest minority, or the largest minority here in America. So Black people, you need to start working with them. What are your thoughts on that comment?
Well, I think let's start out by recognizing the interests of all the parties involved. Now, the Latino politicians, they want a base so they can, continue getting elected. So that's their interest. That's their core interest, the real interest. That's what they really want for themselves. Now, I don't understand why Black leaders are not recognizing that they are doing their community a disservice, because what they're doing is creating more competition at the entry level of the job markets. And that's creating downward pressure on wages. And also, creating upward pressure on housing, which we know is in critically short supply all over the United States. Um, so yeah, I don't understand really where they see sunshine in that, and basically stepping aside for Latino immigration. Um, the DNC as a whole, of course, they just look at us as okay, well, a foundation to remain in power. Um, that's how I see it. I mean, what I'd like to hear from actual African Americans. It's like, what's in it for you? What does unmitigated immigration mean for you?
There's nothing in it for us. You see, that's the thing. We've been taught this to take this raw deal and allow people to make the African American community the floor, the economic floor for everybody else ascent, while we stay down at the bottom. So that's the deal we end up taking, which is why I don't blame. Now that I've become a little more enlightened, I don't blame Latinos for looking around, seeing the history of African Americans, and saying, well, we're not taking that deal. We're gonna do what normal people do, and we're going to, do politics the right way, and get tangible benefits for our votes. But we don't do that. We stick with one party just out of tradition.
Yeah, it's cultural programming, right? It's not a black people weren't convinced that Democrats were the better party. It's a cultural thing. So black people politically have predetermined allies, right, and predetermined enemies, right? Republicans are the enemies, Democrats are the allies, and that's pretty much how it goes. And you're like, oh, are they not getting anything? No. Black people are getting something. All you have to do is look at your local city hierarchy. It's all Democrat, and there are going to be lots of employed black women and some black men. But that's what you're going to get. You look at school boards, you look at these positions. That's what they're getting, right? That whole culture kind of revolves around itself. In the greater extent, of course, it's hurting men, right? Black boys are able to move up the economic ladder, right, with labor-wise, because they're having that cut out. But the public sector is getting a piece. And I gotta go. Hey, thanks for having me up, Dennis. Appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for joining, guys. Links in the chat room again. Links in the chat room, and do me a favor, hit the like button again, please. Please hit the like button. Mexicano, what are your thoughts in regards to the group? You're in LA, so you're at ground zero. What are your thoughts on Black Lives Matter?
Well, let's ask some probing questions. Who organized it? Who's funding them? I mean, neither of those is 100% clear. It's not even clear to me that they're actually getting their funding from African Americans. So who are they?
It's very clear. It's not coming from African Americans. What happened is we created a hashtag, and then it was taken over and made into a LGBTQ organization and a trans organization, and that's basically what happened. So that's where the money is.
So they basically, the left is exploiting this movement or this hashtag for their own benefits.
Yes, basically we created a hashtag expressing a real concern, and because we didn't organize things properly and get a real organization going, other people white liberals made the organization for us, and the organization they made for us didn't represent us, and it still doesn't. It's kind of similar as to what happened with what was that foolishness they did before Black Lives Matter? It was Occupy Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street, yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. It got co-opted, taken over, and then basically every left-leaning sponsor was able to sponsor it and steer the group in the direction they wanted it to go.
Yeah, I remember the Occupy movements. Had friends who were sympathizers with the movements, and when I asked them specific questions about how our system of finance work, they were completely clueless and ignorant, and they were just hopping on a bandwagon that seemed fashionable to them, but fundamentally they didn't really understand it.
And that's the reason why I know people shouted me down last time when I said this, But that's the reason why I said maybe black people should stick with the NAACP and the Urban League, these places that actually, despite the fact they were created by white people and the Niagara movement, all that, they are black organizations. We actually know where the money's going, and they have an infrastructure set up in place. Whereas if we keep this up, we're gonna be hopping from movement to movement to movement, and we'll end up nowhere.
All right, go ahead, Trina.
Well, to add to Black Lives Matter, they basically, first of all, it's not black founded. From what I heard, it was founded by 2 LGBTQ white women. That's what I heard. Second, they raised $90 million. The black community didn't see a dime of it. So I mean, we didn't hold their feet to the fire, really. After we found out that $90 million wasn't going to the black community, we just got mad and got angry and complained. But if you read, I saw, was it Phil Scott's show some years ago, and he was talking about Black Lives Matter, basically reading their policies. Majority of the money goes to LGBTQ and immigrant issues. Only a few of it goes to like police reform. 10% of it only goes to police reform. So, to be honest with you, that organization is really not about helping black lives or stopping police brutality, because we're still getting shot by the police.
Yeah, they made a lot of outlandish claims about changing laws and doing all kinds of stuff. I was out on them very early on when a couple of people from Black Lives Matter approached Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton thoroughly dismissed them because they had no agenda. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, so this isn't a movement at all. This is just a hashtag and people's talking loud and not saying anything. And then it got co-opted and taken over by the Democrats. And, I knew we were in trouble when he had people like Biden kneeling with kente cloth on, talking about, he was for the movement. It's a mess. It's a mess. I'm glad Candace Owens came out with the documentary. I may not agree with her a lot, but I'm glad she did that.
So can I ask about the the kneeling with the African garb? I mean, to me, it seems like obvious pandering. I mean, how does that resonate with African Americans?
I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But I mean, black folks was defending it. Because what I know, okay, Mexicano, let me ask you this: do like white politicians come into the Mexican community like with, and don't take this the wrong way, but this is pretty much what they do to us. Do they come? Do they show up with sombreros and playing the Three Amigos and piñatas and all that? Do they show up to the Mexican community doing stuff like that?
Well, Joe Biden did. Remember his wife Jill Biden, Cisse Padoodle. They she totally mangled our language. I mean, on the one hand, I guess I can't really blame her for trying. On the other hand, it demonstrates how next to nothing she knows about us. So, So I ultimately, I mean, if they can't really bother to know who you are, that doesn't really demonstrate respect.
In New York, we had a mayor who would get on the airways and at least once a month do a whole speech in Spanish, in some of the worst Spanish you've ever heard in your life. That was Bloomberg.
Yeah, it's that's cringeworthy when you see them trying, and they're not doing a very good job of it. But I think was one of the most cringeworthy moments that I recall during the campaigns that led to the election of Donald Trump is when one of the Republican candidates was speaking in Chinese. It's like, nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to see that you're selling out to a rival. But that's neither here nor there, I guess.
Caster Zulu, go ahead. Caster, you got to unmute yourself. Go ahead. You got to unmute yourself. All right, guys. Links in the chat room. Again, link is in the chat room if you want to call in. click on the link. Again, if you want to call in, please click on the link. But Kasha Zulu, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself and add to the conversation. Okay, somebody about to get into bed. Okay, they look comfortable over there with Miss Trina. Somebody sleeping very comfortably in the bed. Okay. But Cash,
That's my
you
daughter.
got.
That's my daughter.
Hey, daughter.
Oh, she's autistic.
Okay.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Kasha.
Okay, so I heard you asked the question like, what are our thoughts on Black Lives Matter? Now, from my understanding, Black Lives Matter. The first time I heard that really was after Trayvon Martin, but really after Mike Brown. And I know there
Right.
was
It got it. So Darren, it got hijacked from Darren Sills. Darren Sills and some other guys in Ferguson. That's where it was founded. And all of a sudden, we were given these 3 women. I don't know where they came from.
right, and he mysteriously turned up dead, shot in his car, and burned in the car. And there was a few other members that he was clicked up with. They turned up dead too in similar fashion. And you're right. Now we got these 3 women.
So can I ask a question with regard to the Black Caucus more or less standing down and stepping aside as Joe Biden asked them to for the sake of these new people coming in? I mean, how does that resonate broadly with African Americans? And is that something they just kind of
Who stepped
gloss over?
Who did Joe Biden? Who stepped aside?
Well, when Joe Biden more or less asked the Black Caucus to make room for the Latinos, more or less.
Oh, I mean, no, I don't know. I don't know. Again, as long as Joe Biden has a D behind his name, they don't care. Again, as long as they has a D behind, as long as they have a D behind their name, they don't care.
Yeah, I've asked Black people why did they vote for Joe Biden, and people have given me the most outlandish answers. Somebody told me, well, I voted for Joe Biden because he was Obama's best friend. I'm like, man, they don't even look like they like each other.
I don't think they do. Obama said some very, I would say uncharitable things about Joe Biden. It was a marriage of convenience for the both of them.
Right. No, go ahead, Norbert. We can't hear you. Oh, go ahead, Norbert. Norbert, go ahead. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Yeah, no, maybe leave and come back in, but yeah, we can't hear you at all. Okay, well, he'll come back.
Okay, now Joe Biden, I think it's popularly understood that he was responsible for the crime bill in 1994 that disproportionately punished African Americans for crack cocaine versus powdered cocaine, which we know is the same goddamn thing. So why doesn't that resonate with the African American community?
Listen, so you're in LA. There's a director. Her name is what's her name? She directed King. She did the documentary. I think it was called The 13th. I think that was the name of the documentary.
Ava DuVernay. So before Joe Biden came into the office, the 94 crime bill, whenever you brought up systemic racism, they always brought up the 94 crime bill. Whenever you have a conversation, discussion about racism, here comes the 94 crime bill. The minute Joe Biden became the Democratic nominee, Black folks was like, listen, put that to the side, let it go, because we got to get rid of Trump. And then you'll just ask, and then I'll just ask one question. Can you name the policies that Donald Trump passed or presented that was worse than the 94 crime bill? And still, Black folks was just like, it doesn't matter.
Well, how much of it is the message not getting through, or the message being hijacked by the media against Donald Trump?
I used to think that was the issue. I don't think that's the issue. I've had people argue with me. Same people who were arguing against the 94 crime bill would then argue with me and say I was being a sellout or a coon for saying that about Joe Biden, and that those people probably deserve to be locked up. It all is very loose, and it moves according to the Democrats' needs. Our people, unfortunately, are more pro-Democrat than we are pro-Black, and so we do what's best for our Democratic paymasters, and we don't do what's best for us.
Okay, well, let me ask a hypothetical question. What would be the line in the sand that the Democratic Party can cross that would start to alienate African Americans?
There is no line in the sand. They've already crossed it. Black folks don't care. Like
No,
Mexican. I've heard Black people say Joe Biden could come on TV and say the N-word, and they were still going to vote for him over Trump. So it's already been like there is no line. There's no line.
Is there any way to draw African Americans to a third party?
Yes.
There's not. I don't think so.
You
No,
think so?
there's not at all.
I voted third party in 2016.
Same
I
here.
voted. So, I didn't find either candidate to be tenable to me. So I voted for Jill Stein and Jammu Baraka.
Well, I didn't vote for either candidate in 2016 because both of them were unpalatable to me. I was just as shocked as everyone when I woke up in the morning.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Norbert.
Yeah, I just wanted to put in my 2 cents on. I'm from LA, so I'm like you said to Mexican Condor. I got boots on the ground, and we're never gonna vote Republican. I don't care how much they try, how much they want our vote. They're never gonna get it. Ever since Pete Wilson, when Pete Wilson happened, it all just went to crap. We said never again with Republicans, at least from the brown community.
Well, yeah, but that's a California specific issue. For your listeners who aren't familiar with what we're talking about, back in the 90s, the Republican governor of California, Pete Wilson, ran on a campaign of support for a proposition called 187 that was anti-illegal immigrants. And it's stained the Republican brand for California to this day.
Oh yeah, yep.
But
We'll never vote Republican.
In Texas, I mean, they don't have that experience. And if they can turn from blue to red, and it's happening in the other border states, well, I don't know that it matters in California, because I don't think I think we should be focused on the rest of America. California isn't the center of the universe, even though sometimes.
I beg to differ. I like to think California is now the leader of the rest of the country. I mean, look at what's happening to the rest of the states. They're following suit. All of them are raising prices. All of them are adopting our policies, and that's actually a bad thing. But we're changing the country.
The Norbert, the left leaning states are adopting California policies and New York policies as well. It's like a mixture of California and New York who have kind of set the standard. The left leaning ones are. And Atlanta was trying, they're trying to do that mess here in Georgia. I'm like, hell no. I used to live in LA.
Yeah.
Hell no.
No, don't. No, nobody should adopt California rules. Nobody. There should be a movement to anti-California states.
Well, I think there is a movement because people are leaving California. Both California and New York are actually losing people. And
yeah. You know what? I'm sorry, Connor. Sorry.
But yeah, they're all moving to Texas because Texas is business friendly. So go ahead with your. Go ahead, Norbert. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, it's facts. For the first time ever, California has finally, because of the census, found out that people are leaving California. That's the first time in California's history. Never happened before. under this governor, that is the first time that's happened. People are leaving California because of this governor. And you know what? I want to tap into something you guys were talking about earlier, which was the Black Lives Matter. I know how people feel about them, and I know they have a bad rap, but to their defense, you're talking about an organization, and I don't know who runs it. Honestly, I don't know. I won't speculate and I won't guess, and everything's hearsay. But what I do know is when you give a small organization a ton of publicity and a ton of money, that's very difficult for somebody that never had that before to know what to do with it. I just want to put that part there.
They
But
they knew
I,
what
I
they knew what to do with it. They grifted the money.
I,
I mean
I'm,
they knew what to do.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. But you know, when you get up there that quickly, you get a lot of people in your ear. You know, and it's a difficult situation when they're like, oh, so I should do this then. But I'm just trying to say that that might be one thing that might be happening. But I do want to speak on the Black Lives Matter organization from Los Angeles, the Los Angeles chapter, which I really do respect because these are real people from the community. They're all black and they all fight against injustice. And even in Gasco, the from Los Angeles, it is hired the Black Lives
No,
Matter
no, no,
chapter.
Norbert, you keep going in and out. Like I don't know, it's like a bad connection. Like it's
Oh, I think it might be my microphone or I might be tapping on
yeah.
it. Am I okay now? Can you hear me better?
No, it's still doing it. Maybe unplug your mic and talk directly into the phone.
Yeah,
Maybe that might be better.
Okay. Better? Does that sound better?
That sounds better. Go ahead.
Okay, so the Black Lives Matter chapter from Los Angeles, they're always there. They're always fighting. They're always protesting. They don't get the exposure they should and deserve. Even right now, as we speak, Black Lives Matter is at Gasco, and I'm sorry, they are at Kevin De Leon's home, protesting with other brown people too. You know, they're always there fighting. I mean, they were there with when Jackie Lacey was his district attorney, and she would not open cases of policemen, LAPD cops killing innocent black people. And Black Lives Matter chapter Los Angeles was at her home harassing her, telling her she needs to do her job and open up these cases of bad cops, bad LAPD officers that killed innocent black men. I mean, to the point where her late husband had to come out and point a gun at them. But they didn't care.
Well, can I point out some inconsistencies in how we talk about law enforcement, specifically in Southern California? LAPD is not. It's a majority department. The majority of the cops are Latino. I mean, and the ones that aren't Latino are, almost evenly split between Asian, Black, and white. So to characterize them as this racist, white, corrupt department, I think is unfair. I mean, are there going to be bad cops? Of course, there's going to be bad cops amongst them, and of course, they should be held accountable. But to dismiss the whole department as being specifically anti-black, I think that's way too general.
It's not. It really isn't. I mean, look at our policies of the state. When the Black Panthers try to protect their own neighborhoods here, our politicians in California changed the law with the city to make sure the Black Panthers aren't able to protect their own neighborhoods from race. And they put it, and it's true. There were racist white cops going into black neighborhoods and picking them up and beating them up, possibly even killing them. I mean, for you to say that it's not, you can't put it all on them. I think we could. And
I think the operative word.
And trust me, they don't look at me like a protector. They look at me like they want to shoot me or catch me.
I think the operative word there is were. You're comparing what was, which I remember the Daryl Gates era, and it was definitely a lot of racism there. But I think it's 2022. I've never gotten a ticket from a white cop. I've always every cop that's ever pulled me over was Officer Hernandez or Officer Jimenez. I mean, that's who law enforcement is right now. We have to recognize that. We can't pretend the demographics are the same.
Hey, Mexican Condor, sorry to cut you off. When I was in LA, every officer that gave me hell was Officer Lee. Officer Lee gave me hell, worse than Hernandez or, the white police officers. Officer Lee was the one that I was like, God damn, that
And, you know,
harassed me the
all
most.
three.
So go ahead.
I'm sorry. All three tickets I've gotten was from a white cop, to a point where he was actually making jokes at me, actually making up nicknames for me. The same white cop pulled me over 3 times in downtown LA.
Well, I mean, if he has the same patrol area, and I don't know, I can't speak to your experience because I wasn't there. Honestly, I can say I've never experienced harassment, but
That's
tickets
good.
I have gotten,
That's a
it's
good thing.
tickets I have gotten. It's always been a Latino cop who pulled me over.
Well,
And
I have in my short time in Southern California, I've never met a group of police officers and sheriffs that were more aggressive tactically than the people out in the cops out in California. And I've lived all over the country, and I've never seen that. It was very eye opening, and I was there like shortly after the whole Rampart scandal and all that good stuff was going on. There's a very deep history of corruption that goes beyond
Oh
just
yeah.
Daryl Gates.
Oh yeah.
yeah, but also that culture of corruption goes beyond color. I mean, we can't just say that it's only white cops are corrupt. Corruption is communal. So it spreads to everyone in the department, not just along color lines.
I mean, all my experiences, all the LAPD have always been assholes. I haven't met one good LAPD officer. That's just my experience.
I've been very fortunate to live in some very nice places around Los Angeles. So I've never experienced what life is like in the more challenging neighborhoods where you
Yeah, I
have to
grew up
deal
in
with the
the
police on a
hoods, yeah.
more frequent basis. So, but yeah, perhaps the difference, your experience is different depending on what part of town you're in.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you know what's an interesting time? It's an interesting time right now because currently the sheriff's department is actually battling against the city council and the board of supervisors. Uh, it's crazy because the city council members want to give more power to the board of supervisors to have the power to replace the elected sheriff out of their seat. So
Yes.
I find it odd that they're trying to have more power when one board of supervisor already got arrested for pay to play, and I think 4 city council members got arrested. And it's interesting because it's that situation where the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So I feel right now that the sheriff's department is my friend because he's trying to actually take down this corrupt city council and board of supervisors. So
Well,
it's an
yes,
interesting.
but the elected sheriff of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, his last name is Villanueva. He's Latino and he's a Democrat. So which side? Who's the good guy and who's the bad guy? Once you take away the label, I mean, which way does it cut? Is he good or is he bad? I don't know.
Right now, and from my perspective, he's good, because if you look at our city, this isn't our fault. What's happening in our city, this violence, the homelessness, it's not our fault. We're all paying a ton of taxes. Everybody in the country can see we're paying a ton of taxes to make sure this doesn't happen. But who's running the money? Our city council members and our board of supervisors. They're the ones that are controlling this situation. They can make all this go away. Los Angeles Times reported that we have 3.5 million vacant apartment units here.
Oh, I don't know about that. That there's only 10 million residents in the LA basin. That sounds like an exaggeration.
Well, Los Angeles Times reported that they're vacant. And I believe it. They're vacant because they're super expensive. Nobody can afford it. That's why people are leaving Los Angeles.
Well, I don't know. That doesn't really resonate with me. You couldn't have that many vacant units in a city of only.
This is why the LA Times reported it, because it's incredible. It's incredible news that many units are vacant.
I
Which I
don't
believe
believe.
because every landlord here wants to make money for Airbnb. They're trying to cash in, and if they have to rent out a unit, they're gonna make sure they're gonna make the money that they would have made had they used it for an Airbnb.
Mexicano, let me ask you this question. Somebody in the chat room said Latinos vote Republican because they come to the U.S. to be white. The Democrats made them brown people to harvest their votes, but in their own society, they believe themselves to be white. What are your thoughts on comments like that, Mexican Condor?
Uh, well, I think maybe whoever made those comments should try living outside of that paradigm of defining everything by black and white terms. Um, but, that it's definitely true that that Democrats want us to feel like we're a marginalized and underserved and an underprivileged community because we would gravitate to them, but they definitely want us to feel that way about ourselves. Um, now, what does it mean that that we want to be white? That we want to climb out of that situation? I mean, if that's a bad thing, then we're all lost. If wanting to do better for yourself means falling into the category of white, then what's the other option? To always stay at the bottom? I know that that's just a toxic way of framing matters, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, somebody said, okay, he said, I live in Mexico. 95% of the people here call themselves white, regardless of how they appear.
Well, again, we have to define what it means to be white. So if you look at the European continents, white, if let's say we define white as European, let's say that the terms are analogous. Well, there are Sicilians that are just as dark as a lot of African Americans. They're still technically white if you want to define them broadly based upon their geography. So I think kind of the same thing applies in Mexico. It's like, okay, we're a Euro descendant community. That's why we speak Spanish, and we're practicing Roman Catholics. It's in the name, Roman. So I guess in that context, we could call ourselves white, even if we're dark skinned and are 50% indigenous or more, because we're our cultural DNA is European. So I don't know. I think it'd be more accurate to say European because it's more inclusive, I guess. I don't know. It's not really something I put a whole lot of thought into because I'm not living in that paradigm.
Right.
Oh, I just want to say something.
Go ahead, Trina.
I just want to go back to Black Lives Matter. I've always wondered, every time we get shot by the police, black American people mainly get shot by the police, it seems like Ben Crump is always to the rescue. And I just don't, okay, I understand he's a lawyer. He's not a politician, but wouldn't you think that he would get together with like the black politicians or black people, black public policy makers, and get together with them and try to get some laws changed or passed, or try to get some anti-hate black crime bill going for black Americans? I mean, what is he doing? I'm just asking.
Mexicano, do you guys have like Al Sharptons in because I never really seen like the Al Sharpton of the Asian or Hispanic community, or the Jesse Jackson, or the Ben Crump. Like, are there individuals like that in your community?
I guess maybe back in the day, Cesar Chavez kind of fell into that category, but nobody's really taken that place with us. I mean, there's really isn't anyone that who I'll point to as, yeah, he's the guy that speaks for all of us. I think that's a very specific African American quality. I don't know. I mean, I don't think white people have any one guy that they all point to. They have a whole bunch of people that they point to. depending on the context of what they're concerned about. But no, we don't really have that.
Okay, Alan, is there anything else you want to add? What we're gonna do? We'll take a couple more callers and we'll close out. Links in the chat room. Again, link is in the chat room. If you want to call in, you're more than welcome to call in. Oh no, bro. The comment that was just made in regards to, I guess, Hispanics thinking they're white. That's why they vote Republican. What are your thoughts on that?
You know what? There are brown people that's happened. Unfortunately, like that we call them coconuts on our side, and brown on the outside, white on the inside, and it does
Okay,
happen. It's unfortunate. Everybody wants to be a Westerner. Everybody wants to be white because they seem to be the most advanced, the most cultural, the more finer things in life with them, and I get it.
Okay, but let me ask you, what does being white mean in that context? And why is it a bad thing? What does it mean in practice?
It's because you're whitewashing your own culture. You're forgetting about it. You're erasing it. You're not trying to be who you were born.
Okay, what
we're
does
brown
that mean
people.
exactly?
We're brown people. We're indigenous people, and we need to embrace our roots. And it sucks that a lot of people always say that. And you know what? But it's true though. There are some people there that they change their last names. If they do come here the legal way, the right way, they come here and they change their name. They go from Jose Rodriguez to John Adams, and it's sad when you see that. But it sucks because they always want to fit in. I had a Korean friend that did the same thing. He didn't want his Korean last name anymore, and he changed it to a white guy's name. But that it's unfortunate, and it's not like it's new. I mean, you see a lot of Hollywood actors that have to change their names to be accepted into Hollywood to get the scripts. And if they're using it in that way, where they're trying to get their bag, get your bag. I'm not gonna knock somebody for them trying to get a better life or wanting to, get up there. That's their thing. Me personally, I wouldn't do it, but that's what I think about that.
Okay, well, usually when people bring out that critique, it's usually to knock people who want to do better for themselves, in my experience. However, changing your name, that definitely makes my skin crawl. So, I mean, that's definitely a line that I would not cross. That being said, coconuts are delicious, by the way. So, I don't think you can dismiss everyone just because they have American mannerisms that somehow they're that's traitorous in some manner.
Well, that's the interesting argument there. Everybody assumes that California or it's part of the United States, and the main language here in California is English, and it wasn't. This was Mexico before, and then the Spanish owned it, and it was primarily once the Spanish came, it was primarily Spanish, all the way from Southern California to Northern California. It was always Spanish. I mean, they didn't change the language to the government forms to I want to say the early 1900s, but before that, it was all Spanish.
Yes, but let's put that in context, man. Spanish is a European language. It's
English.
Yes, it's where our culture is Euro descendant, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, and that doesn't take away from being part of having indigenous roots. You can be both.
Yeah. And I totally get that. And that's the other thing. We gotta have a root, not roots. We just gotta have a root. I mean, a lot of people, they want to be European, then they want to be indigenous. I mean, either you're European, be European. If you're indigenous, be indigenous. That's the thing. That at least that confusion, it creates more division. And if you want to be a European, claim it to the fullest. If you're indigenous, be indigenous, claim it to the fullest. Even if you have half blood this, half blood that, quarter this, it doesn't matter. Just stick to one. And support that part. Support whatever tribe you're part. And don't get confused by this whole we're mixed European, we're mixed Asian, we're mixed. Because okay, now you're mixed with a bunch of things. Where do you belong? That you're just setting yourself up to not go on this side or go on that side. It's
Well,
just creating more
I'm
division, like that and X.
well, I'm on the opposite side of you on that matter because DNA is DNA. You're this and you're that and that over there also. That's just our legacy. We're a little bit of everything, and I think that's probably.
That's but that logic is flawed because if you want to say like,
Hey,
you might
Norbert,
just say,
your connection's going in and out again. It's
oh,
staticky.
sorry about that. Let me
Yeah,
hold it up.
leave and come right back. I'll let you back in. Let me bring Oche in. Go ahead,
Okay,
Ochi.
cool.
Okay, I'll bring you right back in. Go ahead, Ochi.
Yeah. So I used to conflate republicanism with like wholly with racism and whiteness. And the more and more that I kind of develop my own views, the more and more I see that there are some things that I have that are in common with Republicans that I never, ever would have admitted before. Um, and primarily just some of the issues of how family is seen, what a man is, what a woman is, ideas of like I would much rather deal with someone who is racist who wants nothing to do with me, and let them have their area and they do their thing, and I have my area and I do my thing, and I'm happy with that, as opposed to the idea of us different races having to be around each other in order to thrive. And I think that's kind of the utopic view or idea that the liberal uh, agenda really pushes, this idea of inclusivity to a point to mean that people that don't want to be around each other have to be around each other. I think that there can be separation and thriving, and I think there can be mutual respect even with separation. That I don't have to look down at you. I don't have to think that you're less than me. I don't want to. I don't have to wish the worst for you, but I can also wish the worst for me. I mean, wish the best for me and mine. And I see that sometimes that aligns more with the Republican Party than it does with the Democratic Party. And so I can't speak as a Latino, but I can speak as a black man, person who was a Republican, who was a black man. I immediately lost respect for him just by knowing that he was Republican. And now looking at myself at this point, I'm like, man, I don't think I really had an idea of all the weight that carried. And I'm not a Republican. I wouldn't consider myself a Republican or a Democrat, but I think that a lot of the conservative values match more with me and my people than some of the liberal values.
Mexicano, I want you to like. And so when Oche was giving his when he was speaking, he mentioned how when a black man told him that he was a Republican, how immediately he cut him off. So we're still dealing with a lot of that in our community. When you had asked why, there's not a lot of outreach when it comes to like even like black Republicans or Republicans in general engaging the black community. Is that right there?
Well, anyone who treats you that way because of your political affiliation should revisit what it means to be tolerant. I mean, that if you call yourself the one that is tolerant and you're acting in a way that is contrary to that, then you need to be called out for it. I don't agree with. I tolerate lots of people who I don't agree with. I don't dissociate from them.
Amir.
So, if I can ask, when did the Republican Party become the devil himself to African Americans? Because that, as far as I understand, I mean, there was more or less kind of a equal support for the Republican Party in the African American community up until the 60s. If that's if I'm correct, correct me if I'm wrong.
Civil rights with Lyndon B. Johnson. Was it Lyndon B. Johnson?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was Lyndon B. Johnson.
Lyndon B. Johnson, with the civil rights law in 64, 65.
Yo, Amir, can I jump in here?
Go ahead.
All right. So I just wanted to go back to the comment that I made earlier about me being in Mexico and coming to the realization that here in Mexico, the vast majority of the people here understand themselves to be white. And it doesn't matter how they appear. It doesn't matter if they appear white looking, black looking, or indigenous looking. I would say that over 95% of Mexican society consider themselves to be white. And I came here 10 years ago to Mexico, well, to Latin America, but now I'm in Mexico. But I've been in Latin America for about 10 years. And what I've come to realize, man, is that white supremacy is Latino culture. Like, there is no difference. And I think that Black people don't understand that because we don't understand a world where white is the objective. We've been trained to fight against white supremacy. Not here in Latin America. The objective is to become white. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about this whole improve your race shit that they talk about all the time. That's a real thing here. That's a real everyday thing here. It's like, I can't walk down the street. I can't leave my house in Mexico without being reminded that I'm Black. You know, it's like every second of my existence here is about me being Black because everything here is orientated towards whiteness. And so the stuff that this Mexican corridor, I can't really see his name, what he's talking about is what Latinos become once they get to America. Like, they start understanding life outside of white supremacy once they get to America. They start understanding the differences between people who aren't white once they get to America. But here in Latin America, everything is about being white. There are people here in Latin America, my complexion, when they see me on the streets, they spit on the ground, and they're my complexion. Because even the black people here are trained for whiteness. Everything here is about whiteness. And so I don't think he's being completely truthful about, some people live in this dichotomy. And if you live in this dichotomy, he knows his culture better than I do. He knows that in Latin culture, white is the end all. It's the beginning and it's the end. And there's nothing else but whiteness. And so us as black people, man, we need to really understand that we are in this by ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, people have studied us. They learned our ways, and they studied us and they hustled us. And the LA City Council situation just proved it. Like, on the surface, we could talk about the Black Brown Coalition, but underneath, we're all about ourselves. And that's just how it is here, And I don't personally think there's anything wrong with Latinos looking out for themselves, but I think it's also true that we need to understand that that's the world that we're living in. Everybody's not our friend. Just because Caucasians don't like them too, don't mean that they're in a coalition with us. It's like Latino culture is 100% strict white supremacy, and that's it. And so that's all I wanted to say, man. It's like I feel like we're being hustled. When I came to Latin America, I came here with this understanding that we're all the same people. We have a similar history. I saw brown people here. I saw black people here. I thought it would be cool. But man, I'm telling you, everybody that you interact with here in Latin America, everybody that you interact with here is orientated towards whiteness and white supremacy. So I just want to add that, man, that like this stuff that you guys are talking about is stuff that Latinos take on once they get, introduced to American society, once they get introduced to Black society. But amongst themselves, there's none of this. There's what you saw on the LA City Council. It's put on the front to get what we need, but when we try to get to what we try to get to, let's pretend like we, friends with the Blacks. Let's pretend like we like the Blacks. But this language, this monkey language, Black language, the ugly dark people language, this is Latino culture. This is Latino culture. In their culture, this is not bad. There's nothing in their culture that makes this stuff bad. Everything is about strict whiteness. And man, like, for example, I've been here for 10 years. I see the white people who come here from America and Canada and Europe. And bro, like, these people they just crawl on their knees for these people. They just, the moment that white people land in Latin America, they're treated like gods and kings. You know what I mean? And because that's what these people want. They want to accomplish the skin color. They want to accomplish the white status. And he's saying that calling themselves white means that they want a better life. That doesn't make any sense, because with calling yourself white, it doesn't just stop there. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's two sides to the coin. If white is good, that means something has to be bad. If everybody is aspiring to a better life and they think that being white gives them that better life, then what's the flip side of that? What's the people who can't aspire to be white? What are they left with? They're left dealing with the fact that this society versus white skin, and so that's all I wanted to add, man. I just want to jump in and say that right quick, that just based on like boots on the ground, my experience here, everything here is about whiteness, everything, and so, and I don't even judge them for that. I don't even look at them as being bad for that, because that's just how their society is. But the truth is that that's what it is. It's all about whiteness. So I'm gonna jump off here, man. You guys take care.
All right, no problem. Mexicano, you want to respond to that? Then I'll pass it to Miriam, then back to Ochi.
Well, I think we need to really kind of have a concrete definition for what whiteness even means, what that term even means, because calling yourself white doesn't change your DNA. Calling yourself purple doesn't make your skin purple.
So then why do it?
Well, then it's just a label. It's not really who you are.
It's not just a label, because if you look at whiteness throughout history, whiteness means the exclusion of everyone else. Like if you explore whiteness in European history, whiteness anywhere outside of Latin America doesn't include Latin people. Whiteness means purity, whether you agree with the definition or not. Amongst white means the exclusion of everyone else. It means that, look, even our own biracial children that we have with white people are not called white people. You know what I mean? Like even the children that we have with white people have never been afforded whiteness. So how Latinos believe themselves to be white, I don't know. But again, there's another side to the coin, because if you're white and that's good, and that means that your life is improving, what about the people who are not white? Like what treatment do they receive? And so we have to be honest about that, man.
Well, if dark-skinned indigenous people from Latin America can assign themselves whiteness, well, let's all be white. Then we'll all be equal. And
that's what happens, and that's what I've experienced here in Mexico. This idea that if I just call myself white, no matter how I look, if I just call myself white, then that means that I immediately become improved. But of course, that's not realistic, And again, it doesn't just stop there. There are people who suffer because Latinos want to be white. You know what I'm saying? Like the indigenous people, I've seen indigenous children being spit on here in Mexico. Like I've seen it with my own eyes. They call the N-words of Mexico, the indigenous people here, and it's because of this idea that white is right, and because Latin society operates on white supremacy. So it's not just about calling yourself white because it makes you feel good about yourself or your position. There are people who suffer from it. You know what I mean? Like this was just a week ago. I saw an indigenous kid here in Oaxaca being spit on by a white Mexican because they're viewed as trash because they're not white. So no, it's not just that simple. You can't just, DNA and my great grandfather was raped by somebody from fucking Spain and blah blah blah. It doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? It's not that simple. It's not that simple, because again, you know better than I do that the dark people in Hispanic culture and Hispanic society suffer because of whiteness.
Well, I will acknowledge that there is, unfortunately, that there is in Mexico, because that's where I'm from. Some people do have contempt for indigenous people, and it's ugly. And it happens, and it's terrible that it does. It's not my experience. It doesn't. It's not that's not the way I was raised. But I'm not going to tell you that it doesn't exist.
I mean, again, I would go as far as saying that the entire society is structured on white supremacy. So it's not something that's above and separate from Mexican or Latino people. It's how they're structured. It's how they operate. When the shooting happened in New York at Tops Supermarket, when those 9 Black people were killed, here in Mexico, what I heard people say was, now there's 9 spots open for 9 Mexicans to get to America. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't even view those Black people as being human. You know what I mean? It was just like, oh, now there's space open for somebody else to go and take their place. It's like they don't see us the same way we see them. We got this idea that because white people don't like them either, or because Caucasians won't let them be white, or because Caucasians don't like them too, that they're our friends, but they're not. And I have nothing against Latino people. I live in Latin America, but again, we aren't on the same team. We're just not. We're not. Our cultures aren't the same. We're not trying to get the same objective. Like, we don't think about whiteness the same. Like he just explained, there are people here who would just take on the idea that they're white just simply because it makes them feel better, or because they think it'll just give them a better life. But in reality, as a Black person here in Mexico, I see it. I experience it. I wait in line to be helped, and the cashier is on her knees worshiping the white man in front of me, and I can't be helped. Or there's a million different examples. But here, if you're not white, if you're not a white person in Latin America, you're trash. You're shit on the street. Like you don't even exist in society. And so that's what it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy for you. It's easy to say, oh yeah, some people this, some people that. But we got this situation in LA because that's what the culture is. That's what the society is. Those people, those city councilmen, they weren't even all Mexican. That was a variety of Latinos. KDL is Guatemalan, but they're on the same page because that's what the Latino culture is. It's about, how do I step on these people to be able to reach those people? And that's just how I call it.
Let's pass it back to Ochi. Ochi, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Man, that was powerful. That was a lot. I think that I 100% agree that the world runs on this idea of white is right and everything else is below. The question is, who are we to each other? When you talked about there's a flip side of it, if white is right, what does that mean the other is? Whether that's Latino, whether that's African American or Black person in America, or whether that's indigenous African, what does that mean you are? But I'm really more concerned about, what are you leaving on the table? Like, we are mighty nations, and I think our quest for whiteness means that we leave so much of our greatness on the table, and we miss so much of our power chasing after a community of people that are not creators. They are not creators. They do not create. They take what we create and capitalize off of it. They are profiteers off of our creation. And we're chasing after them. So who's creating then? Who is fresh ideas and new ways of doing things to the world if we're abandoning who we are to chase after them? Yes, there is an economic advantage to speaking proper or white English, or speaking white Spanish, or speaking white German, or any other white language. Individual, yes. But outside of that, what is the disadvantage of allowing our languages to die? What is the disadvantage of allowing our cultures to die and swapping in our foods for their foods, our ways of dressing for their ways of dressing, our rituals and our culture and our ceremonies for their rituals, their culture and their ceremonies? It's like we're leaving so much. And these are things that, if you rewind the clock 400, 500 years, they traveled the world to learn about us because we brought so much to the world. They stole our spices. They stole our styles. They stole our women. They stole everything that was about us because we were the flavor of the world. And now it seems like we're just lessening and lessening and lessening that flavor that we bring to the world so that we can fit in, which that fitting in, I think, is ultimately costing us collectively more than we're gaining individually.
You want to add to that, Norbert? And then we'll go ahead and close out. Well, we'll pass it back to Mexican Condor after you, Norbert. Then we'll close out. Go ahead. Hey, Norbert, we can't hear you. We can't hear you at all. We can't hear you at all.
Okay, well, Dynast, I just want to address some of the things that the previous caller had said, and yeah, unfortunately, there are some ugly realities in Latin America, and it's shameful. But I'm not going to tell you that they don't exist. That being said, I don't know. I mean, I think we have to come up with a new term for inclusiveness that isn't whites, because if that's the metric for who's in the club and who isn't, I don't know that we're ever going to get to a place where we have true equity. So I think one thing I'm wary of is if any metric of success or upward mobility, if we define success and mobility as whiteness, and I think it's very toxic if you do that, because then the only remedy you have is to not be successful or not be mobile, and I don't think that's good for anybody. So
Yeah,
actually,
shout out to let's see here. Can we see Mexico Condor? Should we deprecate ourselves in the presence of guests? There's no need to. I mean, we'll be fine. Okay, something you wanted to add, and then we'll go in and close out.
Nah, I'm good.
Okay, cool. Hey, let me put my camera on. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, family, Dynasty Mirror, Search for Uhuru. Peace.